to take a look at Rit Dye and making your own formula for tinting flowers and leaves. I'm working on leaves today, so we're focused on green. If you want to get through the video faster, go down to the cog and hit 1.5 or 2 for your speed and get through this faster for those of you who don't like to hear all my narration, and I don't know how long this video is going to be because we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into the subject. So if you have Rit Dye, or because Rit Dye is so easy to get, I thought that would be a good place to start. A lot of people are wanting more information on color enhancing flowers. This is something that everybody has access to, and I have my own formula that I make. And so I will show you what I did and explain to you why I did what I did, so that that will give you a way to go and take off and do some of your own experiments. So having said that, if this sounds like something that you're interested in, then let's get started. So I'm going to start with green today because green is the color that I use the most of, and my other sources of green that I've used over the years are basically getting depleted, and I need to figure out a way to have green so that I'm happy with something. So I decided to play with the Rit, and here's what I did. I took these colors. Let's see if I can get them all in the frame here. And I mixed them together for the color that we're going to look at closer in a minute. The reason being is because I try to make color families like green, fuchsia, pinks, yellows, and I use that across different leaves. Like all of these leaves here that you see have all been tinted using this same green formula that I'm going to talk about. And you can see how it even though it's the same green formula, it's going to have a different result based on the leaf that you're using. This is a dark leaf to start with, and so it's a lot darker than, for example, this maidenhair, which is a lot lighter. And so I just try to find a balance so that I can use, for the most part, one color tinting medium for a larger variety of items. And I tend to like my green, and everybody's different, but I tend to like my default green to be a little more to the olive green side because I like it to look a little bit more, I don't know, subdued or natural. And again, see, here's another example of same green, but different tonalities. So what this container is, it's best to try to use, this is a recycled, I don't know, old from a glazing for pottery. And it's, so you can see through it, that's always nice. And what I did, I wasn't very specific in my measurements. Try to be more specific than I am. I know that I've got the most apple green, which is this one. And then I added peacock, which kind of darkened it a little bit. And then I added the yellow. Actually, I use sunshine yellow, although which is down below. This is lemon yellow, but I use sunshine yellow. And then orange. What the orange does is it will take your green and move it more to an olive. So if you're working with a green and you're going, oh, that's too green, I don't want it that green or in your face, try adding a little orange and it'll tone it down a little bit. So that's what's in here. And then when I was experimenting and playing around with this formula, it was beating up and not performing the way that I wanted it to. And so then I have these textile mediums. I've got a Delta textile medium and a plaid textile medium. I don't know if they're any different, but I ended up just grabbing one, and I ended up grabbing the Delta. But here's what the textile mediums look at. And to me, this is very important, and I'll show you why in a minute when we get to the demonstration portion of the program. And what I did was I took another container. Now this one isn't clear. This one is frosted. And then you can see where this is the Rit Green mix with Delta Medium. And then I put a pencil line so that, where'd my tweezers go? Here they go. I put this much color in from the jar that I just showed you. And then I kept adding medium up to this line until it was I was doing performance testing all along. I put a little medium in and then I did some leaves, and I put a little more medium in and did some leaves until I got this much medium to this much color. So I don't know what that equivalates to. Probably about a ratio of 1 to, probably a ratio of 3 to 1 if this was 100%. So again, there's no exact science, just play around till you get something that you like. But just to get you started, this is kind of the ratio, color to medium. And then shake it out. Now we'll go ahead and start painting some of the leaves, and I'll show you what the formula does and why I put the medium in. Get these things out of the way. I'm not editing this video, so just bear with me for a second. I'm going to move this out of the way so we have a fresh piece of paper. This paper and the paper that's under it that we're going to use is just nonstick. You can use parchment paper, wax paper. This is just paper from labels. I go through a lot of labels. Those of you that watch my videos have heard me say that before. And then I've got my little, what I call my little coloring tray. It's just a piece of cardboard with a bunch of paper on top. And this is recycled paper from labels I make, and that's what I use to color with. And I will do it over here since you can still see me in frame. I'm going to sit down for this. I don't know, should I bring you down so you can see in more detail? Yes, let's do that. And hopefully it's not going to blur out, but you'll be able to see what I'm talking about better. All right, let me grab a brush, paper towel, brush, paper towel, tweezers, toothpick. Toothpick out. And we're ready to go. Now, the first thing we're going to do is show you this without any of the medium in. And I just did these other maidenhair ferns a minute ago, and so as long as this gives me the same result, I can show you what I'm talking about. Also, if you make a color like this and it's too strong, even once you add the medium, you can take one of these. You can spray some rubbing alcohol in it into one of your wells. And then you can take your medium, okay, and you could put a little medium in another well, and then you can dilute it down. And it seems to play well with the rubbing alcohol if you need to do that. But experiment. Let's see. Yeah, it's a little grainy, but that's without the medium in it. But I just want to show you that you can play around with rubbing alcohol if you want to dilute it down a little bit. What this does is without the medium in it, am I on the right side? Is it will start, well, it's not beating up like it did on the other one. Well, if it starts to beat up, oh, there we go. You see how that's beating up? See that? It's not accepting this just the way it is, the water, because it's water-based. It's not happy with it. So I'm going to wipe this off. That's why I went, oh, that isn't going to work. It's beating up on the stuff. And so I thought, well, two things about the medium. One is it will help it adhere better to whatever surface you're putting it on, because the mediums, I think, are kind of like an acrylic base. And the other thing that I noticed about just using raw Rit dye is that if you paint it on a leaf and then you go and take a water-based medium over the top, Mod Podge or something else, it could end up rubbing off. In other words, I had done some leaves with just this as an experiment, and I went and I did something with, I don't know if it was Mod Podge or some other medium, but the point is it was a water-based medium, and when I put it on top, it started to run off. And so I thought, well, we need something that's going to give it staying power. And the medium, at least so far in my experiments, the medium seems to keep it on. It kind of locks the dye in there and keeps it on. So let's take our formula now that we're creating, which is our base. and then our medium. Shake it up, and then let's take a look at what happens with that. And one last comment before that is that I didn't make is, you see how this says dye more synthetic and this doesn't? Because they make these two different formulas. The synthetic says it's more for polyester, nylon, acrylic, that kind of thing, and then this one is more for your natural things. I don't worry about is it synthetic or isn't it, and I haven't really. Maybe it'd make a difference. I don't know, but I haven't found it makes a difference. So I'm using them interchangeably. I don't really care if it says synthetic or not. I'm more interested in the color, but I just thought I'd let you know in case you go to the store to get some Rit Dye and you're going, well, that one says synthetic and that one doesn't. What do I do? Well, don't worry about it until you have a reason to worry about it. And if you do, put it down in the comments because I'd love to hear what you ran into as far as that's concerned. And then the other thing is I prefer where it's already diluted to the packets where you dilute it yourself. This is just, I don't know, this is all I've ever used, and it's very, very convenient. So you already saw how that started beating up. And I'm just taking the brush, I'm wiping the excess off on the side because it doesn't really take much. And then, excuse me for working around the camera here, and you just start, if I was left-handed, I'm not left-handed, but I'll try to use my left hand. And you just want to fan up, fan out. But you see, it's not beating up. You see how it's not beating up? And so you just make sure until you coat everything. And then pull out. You always, generally speaking, you think about how is the flower or the leaf growing. And in this case, they're all growing from the center stem, so you want to go from the center and pull out. And just take off some of the excess. Make sure it's all coated. And grab your tweezers. And the other nice thing about this too is it doesn't stick to the paper. It's pretty easy to lift off. It seems to dry fast. It's still wet. It won't be as sheeny as this is after it dries. And then I just put it over on this non-stick paper over here. Let it finish drying. Okay. Now let's get something else, which I didn't pull all my stuff out. Oh, here. For those of you that watch a lot of my videos, you know that this is how I store my flowers. I store them in these non-glossy paper, in my case booklets, and then I label them so I know what's in them. Let's pull out a Queen Anne's lace leaf. Okay, now which side's the front? And sometimes if you're doing flowers, one side will beat up more than the other side if it's something that's got a lot of wax or resin in its chemical makeup. But barring that, I will generally just do what I consider the front, which I think it's this side. This is a Queen Anne's lace leaf, and sometimes I will break them down. Most of my stuff is on the smaller scale, so I'll probably go ahead because I don't want this to overlap on that, so I'll probably break that down. Now I've got a bigger piece. Now this has got a little blemish on it, so I'll probably put something over that if I make an arrangement, or I can, take it out of there if I don't. Let's start with this piece. Get a little over our medium. And just brush it on and pull it off. And the reason why you don't have to color enhance everything. I think if you've watched any of my other color enhancing videos, you've heard me say You know, if you're just giving a card to somebody and you don't figure they're going to keep it as a keepsake, or just a tag just for somebody real quick for birthday or gift or Christmas or something, don't worry about it. They won't be around long, and the flowers won't be around long enough to where you have to be concerned. I just do it because, well, I like to color. I used to love to color when I was a kid. But having said that, I also was a person that I hated to color outside the lines. So you get the idea here. You just put it on, make sure everything is coated, and then take some of it off. Make sure I'm still in frame. Now, I think I already mentioned, just if you're doing something, if you're using a water base over this, test it. Now, in my test, like I say, the medium made it to where it was no longer running off. But you should certainly, because you know everybody uses different products. Your medium may be different. You may be using a different color dye. Some dyes, some colorants, like I've noticed red sometimes will bleed more. So there you go. Put that over there to dry. We'll do one more leaf, and then I think you've got the picture, and I'll do my closing. I'm trying not to keep my videos super long because of all the complaints that I get, that's probably the biggest one, is people complaining about your videos are so long. So let's see, what do we have? Find something different here. Here's a mum leaf. Let's do some mums. Yep. Here, let's do a mum. Okay. And then I think this is the right, no, that's the wrong side. That's the right side. No, that's the wrong side. All right. And then you can pull it off easily. What I mean by easily is not a lot of it off. I mean, you want to make sure you get it. Or you can dry your brush a little bit and keep pulling more off, and then that'll lighten it back up again. Especially if your leaves are kind of a light green. These leaves are pretty dark. But here, let me show you the before and after. And while sometimes they don't look a whole lot different with the tinting, where it makes a difference is, let's say, a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 down the line. As the natural botanical starts to mellow or fade, the tint the tint remains, and so this won't be as vivid, in 2, 3, 4 years. But it will have something, and so that's why I do that. And it's easy. I mean, this is just really easy to do. All right. Here's a mantle. Here's a Stilby. Here, we'll do a Stilby really quickly. Stilbies oftentimes are a little bit more waxy than some of the others. This mum leaf is very, very absorbent, but Stilbies sometimes are a little more waxy. So let's see what happens, and I'm not even sure which side is the front. That's the front. Okay. So let's see what happens when we use this. Yeah, I just think that medium makes all the difference. It seems to be staying on okay. And then if it does beat up a little bit, just keep working it for a second as it's drying, because once it reaches a certain level of dryness, it will oftentimes stop beating up. You can, in other words, I call it working it. You work it while you're waiting for it to dry, and this stuff dries so fast that sometimes that's how you can overcome a little beating, something that just beads a little bit. So that's pretty good. So there you go on that one. Hopefully you can see. Let me put something under it. Let's see how nice that looks. And again, it won't be this shiny once it completely dries. Now, the last closing comments that I'm going to make are that then, for example, the first thing I want to do with some of these things that I've just gotten done coloring is I want to do something with a maidenhair fern. And so, oops, excuse me for shaking the camera there. So I love parchment, and my main color schemes is the lavender, the pink, the blue, and then the natural, the off-white. And I want to take one of these maidenhairs, and I want to do a bookmark. Or maybe I'll cut it down and do a tag, or a card, or an embellishment. But right now, because of the shape of this, I'm thinking that would lend itself to a bookmark. Now, usually when I do a bookmark, I also want to put a tag on it. So I made these tags that I want to use. And then sometimes when I'm doing bookmarks, I like to work on panels. And so, for example, the two main panels that I like to use, I've got this what do you call that? Gradient paper that I just love. But I'm not sure. It might be, no, it'll fit on there. So I might use that and go ahead and use the panel. Or here's vellum, although I just got some green on it. And then I might use vellum. And if I do that, I will ink around the edges. I'll ink around the edges with kind of like how I did on the tag here. I inked around the edge. And so I'll do that to both, probably the bookmark and the panel, should I decide to use a panel. So I don't know. There's some ideas for you, or you can, again, a tag or gift enclosure card, greeting card, any number of things, but at least it gets you started. So leaves are very easy. The next color that I want to make is something with like the fuchsia family, because I do a lot of pinks and fuchsias and stuff like that. So that's if you want to actually watch me make a formula, then leave it down in the comments and I'd be happy to do that. And also, I might turn the camera on when I decide what I want to do with some of these leaves that we just pressed. So if that's something you're interested in, then stay tuned or follow. And that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in, and you have a wonderful day. Now, the only thing that I have to figure out is how to stop this. Okay, thank you. I'll have to take it out of the holder in order to get to the